Hi, everybody. I'm Roy Firestone, and this is my weekly show on Facebook and YouTube. David Spindel is a veteran photographer. He's had award-winning portraits taken over several decades, baseball legends, and many, many celebrity portraits too. But a twist of fate changed this man's career and life forever. In November of 1980, Spindel was awarded a location assignment that would forever change the face of his career. Spindel arrived at the Hit Factory recording studios, completely unaware that he would be photographing John Lennon and Yoko Ono. Well, the rest is history. It ended up becoming the last photographs of John Lennon and Yoko Ono together in the studio. And David Spindel joins me now. And this is the book, or one of the many books that David Spindel has published. This is Lennon, Reality or Fantasy, and there's some amazing photographs. I was so struck by that. David, thank you for joining us, and thank you again for sharing these. I think they're precious, and I also think that they're sacred, almost. When you look at the photographs now, we're going to look at them in a few moments, is there part of you that's sad, that's wistful over the fact, obviously you didn't know what was going to happen, that these are probably the last photos or among the very last photos of him with Yoko in the studio?
It totally shook me up because, I just met him, and then less than 3 weeks later, he was gone. I mean, we were joking around and all because he said I had a great sense of humor. So he says, ideally, I think we're going to be friends. That in itself, drove me a little crazy.
I bet.
I didn't even know I was going to photograph him.
Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. You go to the Hit Factory, and you don't even know who you're shooting. You're filming. You're taking photographs of, and you're put into another room, and in walks Yoko Ono, and you didn't recognize her for a few moments too. Is that right?
No, because I'm a workaholic, and I don't pay that much attention to what goes on in the world. I should be more aware of things. I know baseball because I knew Joe DiMaggio and Mickey Mantle, but Yoko and the Beatles, what was going on, I wasn't paying attention to that. And she takes me into this room and tells me she wants to take a photograph of everyone involved in the recording. So
let's stop you right there, because this was the first photo you took. It was a group shot of the entire crew for Double Fantasy. Obviously, Jack Douglas was the producer, but these are some of the engineers, maybe a couple of musicians, it looks like, and there's John and Yoko. Was there part of you that wished you could be in that photo yourself at the end?
Not really. I don't. Usually, I knew a lot of celebrities. It wasn't that often that I took photographs with them. They would always send me, "Don't you want a photo, of us together?" DiMaggio, when he would come to my studio for lunch, he said, "Don't you want me to sign anything?" I said, "I can't afford you." I would make a joke out of it. I said, "If you're going to sign something," when I created the portrait of him with his memorabilia, that I asked him to sign.
Well, we'll show that in a few moments, but I want to stay with John and Yoko for just a few moments here. Here's a montage from your camera of them at the console. Were there any limitations, David? Were there any no-nos? Did Yoko give you a no-no from Ono? Were there yeses and nos? You couldn't take certain kind of pictures?
She just left it totally up to me.
Wow.
The whole thing was, initially I didn't know what I was going to be photographing or who. And when it came to it, I had brought all my strobes from my studio, figuring I'd have to light everything. And I realized if he's going to be recording, I can't have my flash going off every couple of minutes. So I told him I'm just going to shoot available light, and I'll be like a fly on the wall. And that's why one of the reasons the photographs have they're natural looking, because there's no flash with heavy shadows and all that kind of technical stuff.
Yeah, we have some great shots of John playing the guitar. I find these very touching to me, because there he is, minding his own business, recording what ended up being his last album. And here he is. And you took a photo, by the way, of his headphones and that microphone too, as part of this group. But how did he react to the camera? Was he looking at the camera, or was he ignoring
I don't think he was aware that I was there. I tried to be inconspicuous. A lot of shots were taken with a longer lens, so I didn't have to get up close. I didn't want to interfere with what he was doing. I just wanted to do his thing, and I was doing my thing, and it worked out great.
What were you struck with? We have some shots of him at the actual console, the production. Was he a control guy? Was he in control of the studio? Was it Jack Douglas? Was it Yoko? But was he really involved directly to every aspect of what he was doing?
Absolutely. And it was always doodling, things on pieces of paper. And when he was doing Hard Times Are Over, I was taking shots and, making changes. When he was finished, he threw it in the garbage pail. If someone says, "Why do you take it out of the garbage? It's probably worth $100,000." I said, "I
That's
don't
right.
take things when I deal with celebrities. I'm not awestruck. Most of the celebrities I met, they're like down to earth people. Very
Yeah.
few of them, have their finger up their tuchus, if I could say that."
Were there rules by Yoko? Because Yoko really ran the show in terms of John's
Oh yeah, she was in total
marketing, and
control.
were there, they have control? Did they give you access to be able to show these photographs in public, or even sell posters or prints or things like that? Were there rules like you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that?
No, Yoko was very good with photographers, and especially like with me, I was hired by them. I wasn't
Right.
like paparazzi photographer.
Right.
See, initially I didn't know I was going to photograph them. So my rep that I had just started working with told me they have these musicians they know that want to hire me. I said, who? They wouldn't tell me. It was a secret. Until I went up to the Hit Factory, I still didn't know who I was photographing.
Wow.
And after I did that group shot, I had my equipment in this office. And I go in to get the equipment, and there's a guy lying on the floor getting a massage. And I'm saying to myself, boy, these musicians got it made. The guy turns over and it's John Lennon. I almost had a heart attack.
John Lennon was getting a massage in the
Right,
studio.
with this Oriental girl with hair halfway down the back. I know. And he says to me, I usually charge people to watch me get a massage. And I said, well, guess what, John? Like, we're old friends. I said, I usually charge people to move my equipment. Let's just go even. He says, you're funny. I think I'm going to like working with you.
Oh,
And
man.
that's how I met John Lennon.
It breaks my heart to hear him. He died on my birthday in 1980, December 8th, 1980. And I'm like you, my collections are Beatles and baseball too, but I have a massive Beatle collection at my home. So it broke my heart, broke the world's heart. We want to show some interesting things you do though with editing and color coding, and you do montage, you do a lot of creative stuff too. Take us through some of these beautiful, you do a lot of things where you alter the photos and cut them out and put them in another format.
I started getting involved with computers, way back when. Initially, I didn't want to go near a computer. My brother gave me a computer. He says, learn to play solitaire. That'll get you started. But after John passed away, I felt so bad. I wanted to do more work with him. I was supposed to do the cover for the Double Fantasy album.
Oh, wow.
And we set up in the studio several times to do, and every time, like an hour before they were coming down to the studio, they would have to cancel for some reason. And then David Geffen decided he wanted to take over distribution of the record, because Yoko and John really weren't set up as a mass market organization. So they used pictures that they already had.
By the way, let's stop right here on this picture. This is, to me, the quintessential John and Yoko photograph. And you took a lot of them. Right. But would you say this is among your favorites of the group, the two of them together?
The one that's my favorite, I have a print here. This is my favorite one.
Wow.
And they both signed it.
Wow.
David.
It's beautiful.
This is actually a copy. I have a frame one hanging up.
I was going to ask you this, and again, this is with respect. You could really make a fortune. You maybe already have. If you put some of these up for auction, the originals.
I put it in an auction just to see what it would be worth. I asked for like 10 grand as the minimum bid. You'll never guess. And like less than an hour before the end of the auctioneer calls me and says, we got up to 95. You want to accept it? I said, people bid at the last minute. Let's leave it up a while. 21,000.
Oh, so they got 21,000 for one photograph.
One photograph.
Wow. Did you have mixed feelings about it in some ways?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
I didn't know what to do with the money because I never expected to earn the kind of money I did. I was
Yeah.
working, I started out earning 45,000 a week as an assistant, and then the next thing you know, when I finally decided to open my own studio, I went bananas because I went to this advertising agency that does pharmaceuticals.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was a pharmacist. So I go up to see this guy. He says, I got to work. I'm going to call you in about a week. So I said, yeah, the check is in the mail. Forget about it. Well, he calls me. I go up to see him. He gives me 16 ads to do for Percodan. I didn't even ask him how much. They were like the pill with different kinds of instruments, whatever. I do the job. He loves it. He says, I'll send you a purchase order. I said, fine. I got a purchase order for $6,000. That's more money than I earned the whole year before. I said,
Wow.
this could be a nice business.
Yeah.
I worked for this Japanese photographer, Toshi Matsumoto. He was terrific. I worked for him. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I worked for him for 2 days to try out. He says, I'll let you know. And he doesn't say a word. He doesn't talk. He was a very quiet guy. And he finally hires me. And then when I started working for him, I said to the secretary, I got my first paycheck. I said, doesn't Tosh pay overtime? She said, at the end of the month, he saves up, he looks at what we did, and he'll pay the overtime. I get my overtime check, $1,000. I said to him, I'm earning $125 a week, which is more than I was. I was going to ask for like $95 a week when he wanted to hire me. He said, would you settle for 125? I'm not going to argue with the guy. And
Wow.
I said to Noel, the secretary, I don't understand how he came up with that big a number. He says, well, he looks at how many jobs he did. He looked at how hard you worked and gives you, in essence, a percentage. So I kept that in mind whenever anyone worked for me. I always, was very generous to my assistants.
Yeah.
I just got a call from one of them, make it quick. I haven't spoken to this guy in maybe 45 years. He called to thank me for being such a good boss.
Unbelievable.
I said, send me a check.
We have a couple more shots of John. And again, I think that's a great shot, a beautiful shot. Was he easy to work with, David? Was he kind with his time?
It was just like we're talking. He was down to earth. He just, it was so real. I expected him to be different, but he wasn't. He was just beautiful.
Mm. Well, these pictures are beautiful. And again, this is the book with the Lennon and Yoko photos called Reality or Fantasy. But I want to talk about your other work too. You love baseball, so do I. You're a collector, and I mean a massive collector. We're going to show some pictures of some of your collection. Where did you get all this stuff, and how long did it take you to get there?
Well, I've been a photographer over 60 years. So I've met, if you look in the picture, you can see up on the walls the shot of John and Yoko framed.
Wow.
And on the left-hand side is my mother and my kids. And then on the right-hand side is some other photos of John. I knew over 100 celebrities.
Look at this. I mean,
that's part
I know you're married. I assume you're still married. Does your wife ever say, what are we going to do with all this stuff?
Well, we got rid of most of it, believe it or not. When I moved to Arizona, because the house I built in New York started out small and ended up being 23 rooms. I had
look at that. Wow. Look at that.
I had my baseball room. I had a casino because I collected slot machines. I did movie posters for like Cotton Club and Broadway Danny Rose.
Wow.
This was a setup I did for the 150th anniversary of baseball. They told me I had too much stuff in the photo. I had to make it simpler. I said, it's 150 years of the sport. I mean, this one was called the Old Timers. And if you look, each clock has a player in it. And down at the bottom is the mantle clock. So I put them in the mantle clock.
Well, I want to break these down a little bit. We want to start with Yogi. Yogi came to your place and took these photos. This is a great shot. Look at that. He's putting his catcher's mask on. I assume you were a Yankee fan, yes?
Yeah, well, I started out as a Brooklyn Dodger fan, and then I started getting work for the Yankees. What's funny about this photograph, the still life was taken in my studio in my home, and I brought the camera and the film, and I doubled, because Yogi didn't want to come to the studio, so I went to his museum that he has in Jersey, and I double exposed them into the picture.
See. Wow.
And when I did it, I showed him a Polaroid. He said, how'd you do that? I said, if I tell you, I have to shoot you.
This is Mickey Mantle.
Yeah, this was
Mickey Mantle you did a very interesting thing with this. You made it into a collage, and then he signed it with all the great moments in Mantle's career and all the great memorabilia.
Yeah, this was the Hamilton Corporation. I did because of his number 7, and each setup was totally different. And then I did one on Nolan Ryan. I did another one on Yankee Stadium. But Mickey loved me. I made a couple of posters saying we'd give them out of this fantasy camp, which was kind of great. Mickey Mantle's passing out my poster. I freaked out.
You know, you talked earlier about the DiMaggio moment, and there's Joe. I don't know if this is an insert or he came to your house, but
No,
that's a beautiful picture too.
well, this is another classic situation where he came to the studio. I wasn't expecting him. He says, I'd like to see the setup, and he brought a couple of things with him. In the lower left-hand corner is a baseball that he got at the White House that's signed by Ronald Reagan and Gorbachev.
Wow.
Then on the right side is the humidor the players gave him. And if you open up the humidor, it has the signatures of all the players. And he was supposed to get a contract with Heinz Ketchup when he hit 57, games, and he never made it. He got to 56. And people don't know he went on to hit after I think it was the Brooklyn Dodger what stopped his streak. He then went on to,
I think it was Cleveland. I could be wrong about that.
Okay, whatever. But then he went on to hit another like 16 games in a row.
I know. What kind of guy was Joe, Dave?
Well, I got along great with him. A lot of people say he's difficult and nasty. I remember he says, "Mom, we're going to go out for lunch." He says, "We're going to have some Italian." I said, "I don't need Italian." He says, "What Jew doesn't eat Italian?"
I hope you picked up the tab because he was.
Oh yeah. Oh, Joe never picked up a tab.
Okay.
He was tighter than the bark on a tree, as they say goes. But I didn't care. He called me with friends he wanted to bring down to see the studio because I had memorabilia all over the place. I knew I was paying for lunch, but how many guys can say they treated Joe DiMaggio to lunch? I even have let me get up real quick and I'll show you something I got no one else has. Just
okay, he's getting up, folks. This is a first for our show.
First, the guy disappears, but he's here.
Okay, hold on. We're gonna wait for David to come back.
I'm back already.
All right, good. There you go.
He's in my studio. He says, "I'd like to see a copy of the photograph. Can you send it to me?" I said, "Sure." He starts to write out his name, Joe DiMaggio. He wrote Joe, and he didn't fit. He said, "Oh, you know how to spell my name." But he put his address in California and his phone number.
Wow. That's a pretty cool item too.
This has got to be worth a few bucks.
I bet. Let's look at some more. We want to show Willie, the Say Hey Kid, Willie Mays. Now, this looks like he came to your place, yes?
Yeah, well, I built that in the studio. A lot of items that are in there, which was funny. He sits down, he looks around, he says, I have stuff just like this in my apartment. I said, Willie, you gave me the address of your apartment. Who else has a Martin Luther King award? So a lot of the things in the photo were his personal items, and he didn't even realize it.
Wow. That's the Say Hey Kid, man. There are just so many fantastic moments and memories you've had. We're going to take a look at a couple more here. Let me see what we got here. I guess this is Bob Kane, who created Batman.
Right.
This is you taking a photograph in front of his work.
I think 1966. I was working for a studio when they asked me if I would go out and photograph it. So I took a bunch of shots in. It's funny, I tried to sell it to the people making the Batman movies. They wanted me to donate the photographs.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Here's some more. This is one of my favorites of all. You did a lot of celebrities, probably more celebrities than anything else. Obviously, John and Yoko were your most famous celebrities, I suppose. But here's another great, an iconic figure, George Burns. What was he like?
Unbelievable. Initially, he was supposed to come to the studio also, but his agent, I think his name was Irvin Fine, says, he's got a busy schedule. Why don't you come up to the hotel where he's staying? So I'm at the hotel and I'm waiting to take the pictures, and he's being interviewed by some guy from NBC. And finally he says, "Okay, you can do the shot now. You got 5 minutes." I said, "I have to set up my lights and do it. I can't." So I said, "The hell with it." I figured it out. There was a desk lamp in the room. I put that there. My assistant took off his shirt, held it for fill-in. I shot the thing available light in less than 5 minutes.
That's a beautiful shot with available light. You couldn't get a better professional
Yeah.
picture than that. That's just gorgeous. How about Della Reese? We got a shot of the legendary singer Della Reese. People know her as a TV actress, but she was a great singer too in her day. What was she like to work with?
I didn't get to work with her that much. I was at something called the Golden Boot Awards out in California, where they give awards to actors and actresses that have been in Western films, and she was there. So, I got to talk to her for a few minutes, but I took a couple of candid shots. But she was very friendly. I tried to, like, I did Hugh O'Brien's, I think it was his 86th birthday. And Debbie Reynolds, was actually the first girl he dated. And I was trying to take pictures of the two of them, and she was annoyed with me. So I said, listen, it's Hugh's birthday. He asked me to take pictures of all his guests, so don't yell at me. Yell at you. But most celebrities were very nice to work with. Marty Allen, from Allen and Rossi was great.
Yeah, I was going to say it's such an eclectic group. We have a fantastic montage you did of Bette Midler. These look like stuff that you could take maybe in one of those, photo booths. But look at all the different looks of Bette.
Her friend was Adrienne Barbeau, and they went fiddling on the roof. And Adrienne says, I have a friend needs a headshot. She's going off to California. Can you do it? So I said, I'm an assistant. I'm not making that kind of money. Can you pay my expenses, which is like $14 for film and chemicals and all? And she says, I'll pay you when I come back from California. She never came back. She still owes me the $14.
So those photos were before her great career took off, right?
Yeah, it was 1969.
Wow, amazing. I want to show a group shot of all these amazing celebrities. You did politicians and musicians and actors, and some of them are dubious figures now. There's Rudy Giuliani, for example. You got Tony Bennett. You got Tony Bennett. You got Ernest Borgnine. On and on it goes.
That lady at the bottom, she's the Edith Head. Edith, I can't think of her last name, but she's the girl in the picture that Eisenstadt took on Broadway.
Wow. What have you learned about celebrity, David, with all the years that you've done photos of celebrities, would you say?
One of the things all of them have in common, and I have the same thing, we're getting paid to do our hobby.
Yeah, something you love.
Katharine Hepburn, I can still remember, when I went to visit her, she said, I work for free, but these idiots pay me.
I love that. Hey, we're almost out of time. Again, this is the book, the one that really caught my eye, Lenin, Reality or Fantasy. It's just a fantastic book. Where can people get your books? Well, I know that you're sort of self-published, aren't you?
At this point, yeah. Well, they can go on my website and contact me, which is spindelvisions.com, or they can just email me at dbspindel@cox.net, and I'll send them the information. Because I have other books. I'm writing this other book. This is called The Kid in the Candy Store of Life. And what it is, it's stories of celebrities like Joe DiMaggio, Katharine Hepburn. It has, pictures. Here's Douglas Fairbanks Jr.
Wow, fantastic. Before we go, I read an account about you that said you had battled depression. And it's not too personal because you've talked about it. Do you think these photographs and this work lifted you up, gave you a chemical lift, so to speak?
Well, I loved what I did. I never expected to photograph so many celebrities because I was basically a still life photographer.
Right.
But being in business, a lot of people started, not paying. And I was under a lot of pressure. I was building this new house. Honestly, I got ripped off in a stock swindle. I mean, I ended up, getting depressed. I went through 21 shock treatments in New York.
Wow.
That's more than most people do. I was on every medication that they could try. That nothing seemed to work. When my wife finally said, we got to sell the house, we're getting out of here. That's why we moved to Arizona. It's almost 19 years ago.
And you're in Anthem, Arizona, right?
And when I moved here, I had 10 more shock treatments. I think I'm in the Guinness Book for the most shock treatments, 31.
Hey, listen, you seem great to me. You seem joyful to me and upbeat. And I know that obviously depression isn't always about being in a bad mood, quote unquote. It's chemical imbalance.
It's difficult because, you get stressed out, anxiety, things happen. And the trick, I just went through it, to be honest with you, about which it's like 3 days now, I'm back to normal, but I was depressed and with anxiety, because I had a problem with my computer, like most people. And they kept on telling me what to buy, and I buy it, and then it didn't work. I mean, they had me buy a new Mac Mini for $1,000. I still haven't got it hooked up because I can't get all the right connections. I said, I don't need it. I'll stick with the old one.
Well, I can tell you this, that your work is your legacy. It's just remarkable stuff. And as I said, this is the book, the Lenin book, that really struck me. It's a fantastic book, and obviously it's historical now. David Spindel, thank you for spending the time with us, and I want to wish you the very best of luck. Stay well, stay upbeat, stay happy, and continue to do the great work you've been doing.
Thank you. That's the secret, to do what you love and actually get paid to do it.
Thanks, David. Thanks, David.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That's our show for this week. We thank our guest, David Spindel, and his marvelous photographs. We'll see you next week, everybody.